Welcome to our presentation on cobots and automation in manufacturing. It's a very interesting topic, very hot right now because the workforce problems that we're having all across the United States has really caused cobots and automation to come to the forefront of technology. Everybody's interested in these because we have a lot of jobs that are not being filled, and cobots is an option and something that you can look at to possibly fill that need. So today's presentation is going to be by a good expert in the field, a special guest we have, and I'll introduce him in just a moment. But first, a little bit of background and a little bit of other information about Industry 4.0 and Missouri Enterprise. Okay. Missouri Enterprise is the premier provider of technical and engineering type services across the state of Missouri to manufacturers. We have helped more manufacturers across the state of Missouri with their technical problems than any other company, consulting firm out there. We are part of the National MEP Network, stands for Manufacturing Extension Partnership. We're under NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. There is an organization like Missouri Enterprise in every state. So there's 50 other or 51 plus other ones of similar to Missouri Enterprise. We are statewide. We cover the state of Missouri. You can see on the slide there we have 5 different offices, but we do pretty much our office is our car. We travel around the entire state. If you're on the Iowa border, the Arkansas border, whatever, we'll come to you and we'll help you with your manufacturing problems. Our purpose is to help manufacturers to grow. We help small and medium-sized manufacturers. So if you've got 1, 2 employees up to a few hundred, give us a call. We can help. We have experts throughout the state. We can help you with things like industry certifications, maybe ISO, maybe if you want to get Six Sigma. We have experts in Lean, help you take some of the waste out of your manufacturing. Energy audits, if you want to save some cash with your energy bills, product design and development, a new product you have coming out, technical assessments of your equipment, food safety. We can help you with ERP systems. We can help you with websites, safety. We do a lot of training help. We can do the training ourselves. We can help set up a program within your company so you can do the training. That's been very hot lately because of workforce development, people learning the basics of manufacturing. And if we don't have the experts on staff, which is hard to believe because we do have quite a few experts on our staff, if we have outside resources we can bring in, the people we've worked with extensively through the years. And if they can't help, then we can go to those 50 other organizations, 50 other states. So we can go get somebody from Georgia or get somebody from Oregon that can come in and help you. And if that doesn't help, then we can even go to the big brains. We can go to NIST. We can get the PhDs to come and help you with help solve your problems. So we are a national network, but we're statewide. We're very Missouri focused. We know Missouri quite well. We know the ins and outs all across the state. Anybody that works for Missouri Enterprise knows the best bathrooms to go to anywhere in the state of Missouri because we spend a lot of time on the road. So before we get started, real quick, I want to tell you a little bit about the Industry 4.0. That's kind of a products that we provide with Missouri Enterprise. And Cobots is one of those products, one of those areas of focus. Well, it used to be called Factory of the Future, but that's not the case anymore because the technology we're talking about isn't in the future. It is current. It's things happening everywhere across the state. So we have 9 technical technologies, digital technologies that we talk about when we say Industry 4.0. The first is immersive experience. That's virtual reality. So we can help you with things, the virtual reality, the 3D glasses. The interesting thing to me is look at the 2 pictures on the right. Imagine Google glasses. They were big a few years ago. You could look Imagine a pair of safety glasses with a camera built in, and a technician needs to work on an engine. He puts on these glasses, says, I'm going to work on this model of a vehicle, and it tells them, okay, if you're going to change this part, unscrew E3156. So it uses the glasses to show you exactly what you need to do. Big data. In the past, we didn't collect a lot of data. Manufacturers didn't collect a lot of data, except if you were maybe in like a medical fields. But if you want to collect information like the temperatures, the humidities, who worked on what part, where the supplies come from, you can gather all that data now and store it because storage is cheap. And it's very easy to put sensors on things so you can gather that information. So years from now, you start having problems with a product that you sent out the door, and you can do some research and say, hey, you know what? When the humidity was over this or below this, we had problems with the paint. So then you can go back and figure out which parts you made, what day, what serial numbers you made, and have that problem, and you can be preemptive and solve it. Cobots, robots, we're going to be talking about that today. Two very important things I want you to listen to today about the cobots and robots. First of all, look at that picture. There's no guarding around that robot. In the past, when you would go into a factory, there'd be a robot, there would be guards, there'd be cages around these things because they could literally kill you because they're such big, heavy equipment. That isn't the case anymore. You can work right next to a person. The second thing is programming. It used to take weeks, months maybe, to become a good programmer in robots. Now it's very simple to program these cobots. And a nice thing about being simple to program, you can move it from one station to the next very simply. Some of our clients are putting cobots on carts and just moving them around the plant as needed. Additive manufacturing, 3D printing. It first started off as prototyping. Everybody just wanted to prototype parts. But now we have some of our clients are using additive manufacturing or 3D printing to make actual production parts. If you have a low volume part that you don't want to spend the money on tooling to get it made, you can make one-of-a-kinds parts. You can make minor tweaks to parts. Use it as part of your regular production. Change your business model to where you can do low volume parts. Talk to us. Missouri Enterprise, we own a couple of 3D printers. We can tell you, we can help you make a decision on what you want to do and how you can best utilize this technology. Simulation, we're talking things like simulating the plant layout. So you can see how your plant would be different if you laid it out a different way, what that would mean to your production, what that would mean to your plant flow, or even simulation as easily as finite element analysis to see when a part is going to fail. Cloud computing. This is something that was not really big, and then this thing called a pandemic hit, and people needed to work from home. So they needed to get access to that file that's on the server at the office. How do I do that? Well, now we start using cloud computing. That's simply things like Box and Dropbox and ways to access your information from afar, from a remote location. So you can approve that contract while you're waiting in the airport for your flight. It makes the world a little easier for manufacturing today. Internet of Things, that's a connected plant. Imagine you have a piece of machinery that does inspections near the end of the line, and it sees that another machine upstream of it is making parts that are a little out of tolerance. So the machine at the inspection machine can talk back to the other machine and say, hey, these tolerances are out, move the tool a little bit closer this way, or maybe you need to change the tool. It can also communicate with your maintenance department, say, hey, our cutting fluid's about to wear out. So a connected plant is very simple if you can get the machinery to talk to each other, and that's what we can help you with that step. That's the first major step you need to take. System integration. This is the ultimate, if you will. A consumer goes onto your website, orders your parts. It talks to your ERP system, MRP system. It schedules the manufacturing. It orders the parts from your suppliers. It gets the parts made, and everything is, as it's being made, it goes back and feeds back to the consumer and says, hey, your part is going to be late because a circuit board is not available. Not that that would ever happen, but let's say that in the instance, maybe there's a circuit board unavailable. So now you're saying, okay, Mr. Consumer, your part will be delivered on this date rather than the original scheduled date. And it can go and even schedule the truck to deliver it. So this is a complete integrated system and everything is connected. And finally, the umbrella that covers it all and guards it all, the armor to protect it is cybersecurity. I talk to clients occasionally and they'll say, well, cybersecurity isn't that critical for us because we don't have anything that's classified. We don't have anything that's technical information we need to guard. For the most part, 99% of the time, cyber criminals are not going after your technical information. They're going after your list of who works for your plant. Imagine what you have on your computer. You have everybody's name, their address, their phone number, their social security number, and chances are you have their bank account number because you give direct deposit. That's the kind of information that you need to be able to protect. And that's what criminals are going after, and that's what they're trying to get to. So we can help you with cybersecurity. Contact Missouri Enterprise. Contact your area business manager. If you have any questions on these things, go to our website, www.missourienterprise.org. Look under events, and you can see other events that we're presenting. And at the same time, you can look and find out who your area business manager is. He would be happy to talk to you about any of these or any of the other services that Missouri Enterprise provides. Now, our presenter today is Kurt Vaeth. He is a Robotics Solution Specialist with FPE Automation, Inc. They are experts in installing and helping you set up cobots and other automation within your plant. So I will let Kurt talk about, I take too much of your time already. I'll let Kurt talk about robots, cobots, and different things that we can do within your plant in the area of cobots and automation.
They've really been taking the manufacturing industry by storm. We've been working with Universal Robots for about half a decade now, and they have continued to double in size every year we've been with them. So what does it mean to be a collaborative robot? What is a collaborative robot? For those of you who are on this call today that don't know what this is, first off, what it means is they are safe to work next to their human counterpart. These robots are designed to be maintained, operated, and deployed by someone who isn't necessarily a robotic programmer. Not only was the hardware designed to be collaborative, but the software was too, and this is what puts these robots ahead of the pack. They're very easy to use. If you can use a smartphone, you can pick up and teach a very simple program on this robot just to pick and place. And because of their easy to use, they're very easy to redeploy. And as you will see later in this PowerPoint, these robots can be mounted to mobile carts and rolled around to whatever station they're needed at. And if there's a program already written for that specific job, it can be opened within minutes and begin doing its task. And last but not least, it's low cost. All the features I've mentioned above attribute to this, and we typically see a very attractive ROI for these robots. And I'll get more into detail with ROI and costs a little later in the presentation. So my presentation today will be split into two distinct sections. First, I'm going to focus on the why. Why do collaborative robots exist, and why are so many companies moving in this direction? And then second, I'm going to focus on the what. What is the technology and how can it impact your company? So first off, we understand that things are changing. I think everyone in this meeting can agree that manufacturing is changing very rapidly, and very few of you are doing your processes the exact same way that today as you were 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, or even last year. And in this world, we have to adapt to changing work environments to stay competitive, and collaborative robots are a main factor for a lot of people that have chosen to close this manufacturing gap. And I would assume the majority of you watching this webinar today do things a little bit different than the next guy, but I think a commonality would be the high mix, low volume in the manufacturing force. This is something that traditional robots do not lend themselves to, and traditional robots are typically built for high mix or high volume, low mix applications, which are more of that fixed type automation that you see in the automotive and larger manufacturers that have that type of cookie cutter product that they're creating. They don't lend themselves very well to meet the demand for manufacturers that have small volume and high changeover, and collaborative robots are really helping fill that gap. So additionally, everyone is dealing with the Amazon effect, and anything I want, I can order on Amazon, and it can almost beat me home. And customers and manufacturers are starting to expect a similar service, but that's not how manufacturing works. And especially in this day and age with the pandemic and things, it's a lot harder to get products that make your end product. And when you're making something from the design to build stage, it cannot be expected to show up in a couple days. But because of how the business to consumer model is changing, it's still expected. And collaborative robots are helping bridge this business to consumer gap in the manufacturing industry by maybe increasing your output and helping with that customer demand and that faster delivery. So I think this next slide is going to be impactful and probably resonate with most manufacturers on the call today. It's the three reasons why people are looking at robots to aid in the manufacturing. It's the typical reasons that we see that people are looking at robots to aid in manufacturing. The first one is rising minimum wages and training costs. People are the prices are going up for what people are doing a job for now. And now, again, like I said, with the pandemic, it's gone up even more exponentially. We're also dealing with the number one reason people can't find people to work. And we'll get into this number in a little bit, but the skill shortage and high turnover rate is something that no one can dismiss. No one's wanting to apply for these jobs. No one is applying for these jobs anymore. And it's there's not really a solution in sight other than trying to automate some of these processes. And the third is global competition. You're no longer just competing with the guy that does similar work to you around the corner. Now every single one of us is competing with someone across the globe that has a different set of labor laws and a different set of rules to play by. So how do we stack the deck in our favor to allow us to be much more competitive than the other areas around the world that do not have labor restraints that we do here? So we are also changing the face of manufacturing, and this is how collaborative robots are doing that. Typically, when you hear of robot, you think of an industrial robot, you think of an image similar to the one here on the left of the screen. And these robots are robots that have been around for nearly half a century now. And traditionally only lend themselves for work, and like I mentioned earlier, fixed automation environments that are really doing the exact same thing 24/7, 365 days a year for years on end. And this is why industrial robots and collaborative robots do not typically compete with one another. They each have their own uses in their own respected areas. With that said, there are not a lot of SMEs that manufacture this way. This is why we're seeing a large shift in the amount of manufacturers that are going to the cobot route, like the image showing on the right. They can be used in a much smaller environment and used as a tool by your employees to get more out of their 8, 10, maybe 12-hour day. And they're really filling that gap that has gone unfilled in the small to medium-sized manufacturing environment for some time now. They can also help set the pace and increase output because the robot is always going to be waiting on that person. So the quicker the person can do their process, the quicker the robot can go. So how do the two differ? Manufacturers have been working with industrial robots for a long time, and they certainly have their place, but there are some key points that separate the collaborative counterpart. Number one would be the difficulty in setup and programming. And I'm not sure how many on this call have worked with industrial robots, but they're a little cumbersome, and you need to be a skilled robot programmer to leverage their full capacity or have multiple days of training under your belt, even weeks of training under your belt. Universal robots have changed the game to allow anybody and everybody to grab the teach pin, just like you would a tablet, and put together a simple pick-and-place program on the robot. This is helpful because a lot of times when you get an application and you develop it and you integrate it, you don't touch it for a while. So if you have the training and you have the people on staff that know how to use the industrial robot, but they don't touch it for, say, years, they kind of forget that skill. With collaborative robots, you will probably move it around a lot more in your facility. You'll probably mess with it a lot more, and you don't necessarily lose that skill to how to program the robot, how to touch up things, and multiple people in your facility can learn. The next would be the fixed installation. These robots no longer have to be monuments stuck in the concrete for a fixed application. They can be mobile, and as I mentioned earlier, they can be mounted to a cart and taken from workstation to workstation depending on the demand, space requirements, depending on demand, and space requirements is another one. Space will open up on your floor because you no longer have to have safety fencing and have robots dedicated to a certain area and then people dedicated to another. Now you can kind of utilize all of your floor space and have the two really mesh together. And there are also numerous additional costs, which we'll talk about here. So if we're looking for a 10-kilogram industrial robot versus a 10-kilogram collaborative robot, the costs are relatively close together. There's not much difference between the two. But when you step back and you look at the total cost of ownership, you'll see the hidden costs in a traditional system versus a collaborative system. So we've got the robot hardware, of course, but we also have the end-of-arm tooling, and every robot is sold with, it comes with a blank wrist, like the one you see on the top right. There's nothing on the end of the arm. And it needs some sort of end-of-arm tool attached to it to accommodate the application you're trying to automate. So there's also different power. Industrial robots generally run off 3-phase. There are some smaller industrial robots that will run off 110, but all of the collaborative robots will run off 110 volt, and you will not need to call an electrician to do any drops or anything like that, and that's an additional cost. Fencing and guarding is additional cost, light curtains and additional costs, safety scanners, software licensing, all these things add up to an extremely cumbersome and expensive robot deployment. And with Universal Robots, you do have your hardware. You also have your additional items like your end-of-arm tooling that'll be plug and play. And then you have teaching. Instead of programming or trying to integrate, depending on the application, you can teach the robot how to do the application that you purchased the robot for. Now, in some instances, there is integration and programming. We typically see around 50%. It just depends on your application of DIY versus integration programming. And then you have some maintenance repairs, but there's no grease, there's nothing like that. It's just preventative maintenance, more or less. It's just making sure that dust doesn't get in the seals of the robot and the control box, the vents stay clean and free of, not free of debris, but at least maintain that. So now that we've kind of looked at collaborative robots and why people are going that direction, let's see where they're being used. Some of you may have seen collaborative robots on YouTube or at some trade show of some sort, but really, how are they being utilized on a factory floor? So here's a video of an automotive manufacturer that's using cobots in place of a human that would either be in a manhole or on a creeper all day, screw driving inside that wheel well. Notice how the robot's mounted to an overhead gantry that comes down and locks on the chassis of the car. By adding Universal Robot to this application, they not only helped improve the ergonomics, but also added automation and application that hit on the 3Ds of automation. And when I say 3Ds, I mean, this is what we typically look for when we go into a facility, trying to figure out what's the low-hanging fruit to automate. Is the application dull? It's very dull. I mean, doing the repetitive tasks, this repetitive task 200,000+ times a year would be taxing on just about anybody. Is it dirty? I think so. I think being on a creeper all day or in a manhole of some sort could be a very dirty job. And is it dangerous? Yes, it is. It could be extremely dangerous depending on how it's set up for a person to be in there. All right, go to the next one here. So this next one kind of highlights some of the things that I've mentioned earlier about putting a robot on a cart and moving them around facility from job to job. So because they're lightweight, I think the heaviest one's like 75 pounds and can be moved and mounted almost anywhere. Dynamic Group is kind of, they've really taken advantage of that. They're a contract manufacturer out of Minnesota, and they've mounted a UR on rolling carts and move it from one process to the other just as demand dictates. So in this case, it's going from maybe a kitting application to a tending injection molding machine application to a degating application. The flexible deployment supports agile manufacturing and demands for high mix, low volume, and custom processes. You can easily move, redeploy, and adapt them in new processes or product lines with easy programming and a full ecosystem of peripherals that we'll kind of get into here in a little bit to support almost any application. And of course, you can also save programs to reuse if you have cyclical demand and you have a process that is order based. Well, most of them are, but if you have one that only goes, say, every 3 months or every month or every 6 months even, the program is always going to be in that controller, and you'll always be able to pull it up and restart it within a matter of minutes. The next is palletizing, and this is one we've seen huge growth in the past, I would say 2 years, and there's a lot of integrators who specialize in this type of stuff. There's off-the-shelf components that help a lot with palletizing. One of the UR Plus partners, Robotic, makes an entire system with the 7th axis. So this particular one does not show the robot on a 7th axis. It's a fixed base. But what I mean by 7th axis is it's a pillar that'll lift up and that allows you to stack your boxes, say, 80 to 95 inches tall. So you can completely repurpose a person that has to be doing this all day long. Now, in palletizing with the Universal Robot, we can pick anywhere from, say, 11 pounds all the way up to 37 pounds. And typically, that includes just kind of showing how it hits the person, the collaborative nature of the robot. But that 11 pounds to 37 pounds includes your end-of-arm tooling as well. So end-of-arm tooling is typically around 2 to 4 pounds. For palletizing applications, it can get more than that or less, just depending on application. But then you have, say, even 30, you can do 32-pound payload then at that if you subtract your end-of-arm tooling from there. So it covers a pretty wide variety of different palletizing applications. And then we have machine tinning. So machine tinning is another one that is a really popular application, a really good ROI. I think average ROI for machine tinning is around 10 to 12 months. As you can see in this video, there's a couple different things going on. The robot is opening and closing the door. We can do this a number of different ways. We can have it by auto door opener. Those are fairly expensive. Or you can add a pneumatic cylinder to the doors to open and close the doors and have the robot send a signal to open and close the door when the process is done in the machine. You can also see this robot has little grippers to help increase the cycle time. So it'll grab the blank and have that blank ready. And once that part has been cut, they'll pull the cut part and place the blank without having to go back and pick a new one. Closing the door. In some of these applications, this one might be too, where the robot is actually pressing the start button or cycle start, just like a human would. Yeah, it is. So you can also see that it's on a stand called a feeder. It's a mobile stand that you can lock in. You lock either to your machine or into the floor, and it's got that pegboard type thing sitting on a 45-degree angle. So this is nice for if you have multiple different parts, which most customers do. You can switch the pegs out to hold different parts and use this for multiple different applications and not just one specific part. That's kind of just going to show it waiting now, but the next one is quality inspection. So I'm going to be quiet for a little bit and let you watch this whole case study here.
Comprehensive Logistics is the #1 logistics and contract manufacturing provider to 2 of North America's largest automotive enterprises. The Ohio-based company runs fast-paced suspension, powertrain, and interior component assembly lines, leaving no room for error.
Our customers speak quality constantly, and when they come to us, we speak the same language. Everything is just in time, just in sequence, and that's what we do as a company. Comprehensive Logistics has one subassembly operation where the final check of the quality required us to validate a electrical connector was locked in position.
So we had a system in place before where we had stationary cameras in place that it served a purpose, but they couldn't get into some tight spots. They weren't nearly as repeatable, and I don't think the Universal Robot because it gave us a personalized system. It was a lightweight system that interacted well with humans. We didn't need to have the cumbersome light curtains that are required with some of the standard robotic systems in the industry. The inspection, if it's done by a human, is about 80% efficient, so Universal Robot provided us the opportunity to strongly position ourselves, get 100% quality. The dexterity of the Universal Robot is such that it can get pretty much anywhere on that assembly that we need to get. There are two plugins for the wire harness, and they have two locking devices. If there is an intermittent connection or it's not connected and locked into place, it is a loss of power steering, which the operator of the vehicle is in danger. It's a life-threatening failure mode, so that we need to 100% of the time make sure that those clips are locked. If the inspection fails, you are able to interact with the Universal Robot and go in and fix the issue. The return on investment is probably about 7 months. We had a turnkey operation that exclusively had an integrator included. The payback for the hardware for Universal Robots in itself would be probably less than 4 months. We have not had any issues with the robot since its implementation, aside from possibly adjusting some of the images on the camera unrelated to the programming of the robot. The Universal Robot provides comprehensive logistics, real-time, quick change kind of ability. If new requirements were to be given to us by our customer or different inspection criteria, then it's very easy to add inspection points to the process. If we lose power in the facility or there's some blip, even if it's interrupted by human interaction, you basically just need to reinitiate the robot and start it, and it continues to go from its stopping process. We could potentially replicate this process on other lines if the customer has mission-critical inspection points that need to be 100% quality.
It's like family. It's here before I am, during the day, and it's here when I leave. So, I mean, it's a part of the system. And we just take the robot on as another employee, basically.
So now that you've seen some of the videos and case studies, I wanted to talk through a quick example of a small company in Dallas that has had great success with Universal Robots. They were having issues with finding and retaining staff, like I would assume most of you are. And this was causing them unnecessary downtime and having to turn down work during staffing issues, or due to staffing issues. And with no robotic programmer on staff, they were able to get trained through the Universal Robots Academy, which I'll kind of explain here in a little bit, and automate their first job within 2.5 months. This gave them a 60% increase with a 4-month ROI, and it also increased their spindle up time from 8 to 20 hours a day. And today, they have a total of 8 Universal Robots in operation and increased staff from 16 to 22 people. The entire team is trained on how to program and make small changes to the robot. And not only that, they are more competitive and now winning larger projects because of what they've decided to automate and how they've decided to move forward with business. So robots versus labor. The question is, are robots taking everyone's jobs? And as you saw on the previous slide, the reality is it's not in the slightest the truth. We go into a number of different manufacturing facilities on a daily basis, and they can't find enough people for the jobs. So it's really becoming a necessity for companies to fill these positions with robots because they can't find enough people to do it, and they still have to operate on a day-to-day basis. And in a recent study, executives reported that they cannot even fill higher paid entry-level production positions, let alone find retained skilled workers for specialized roles. It's looking like it'll be a long-term challenge for about 77% of manufacturers trying to find and retain workers in 2021 and beyond. So everything I'm currently going over, and it was already an issue before the pandemic, and it since has worsened. The hard data states that about 1.4 million U.S. manufacturing jobs were lost during the early days of the pandemic, setting back the manufacturing labor force by more than a decade. While the manufacturing industry recouped 63% of jobs lost during the pandemic, the remaining 570,000 had not been added back by the end of last year. And as you can see here, in the Midwest in particular, but really all of North America, we have a labor problem. And I think that everyone on the webinar today understands that. we have a lot more job openings than there are qualified applicants to fill those jobs. And with the National Association of Manufacturers saying that there were over 500,000 unfilled jobs at the end of the year last year, I'm sure some of you all had some of those unfilled jobs at your facility. The days are gone when you put up a help wanted sign and a couple days later you had 10, 15, 20 applicants knocking at the door to try to get a job. The unfortunate part of all this is that 28.8% of plants turned down new work last year because there was no staff to produce the new business. And this is just unacceptable. If you have the capital equipment and the capability to produce these parts, then every job comes through that door should be taken. There's just so many places we go into where machines are not running because there's nobody to run them. So those parts just don't run that day. And that's very unfortunate for any manufacturing company to have to see that and have to be putting up with that. So finding employees is hard enough, but how do you keep the employees that are your good employees? How do you keep them and retain them to stay and not go to other jobs, because there are so many other jobs out there? In another NAM survey, it's stated that 83% of employees remain at a company just because they enjoy what they do. Happy employees are 31% more productive than their less happy colleagues. And attitude is contagious. If you go into a facility, you can tell which facility people enjoy their jobs and which don't. It's very obvious right away. It has a ripple effect on everybody around it, and it helps build a more welcoming environment, which can even catch on to new hires right away, and they're going to like what they do. If you get hired into a position where nobody's happy and nobody's in a good mood around you, you don't want to be there. And this kind of adds along with feeling valued. Employees who feel valued by their employer describe themselves as highly motivated and satisfied with their jobs. These are the types of employees that are going to really help do the recruiting for you when they're out, and even out and about with friends and out and talking about. You always have that friend who hates their job, but if they're talking about how they like their job, it's going to bring more people to your facility. And then 75% of job seekers say that an employee brand is a deciding factor as well when applying for a job. And automating tasks can help really improve your employee brand. So what's the solution? It's really no longer a case of if a business will embrace automation, but a case of when. And businesses that fail to automate tasks risk losing the best candidates and their best employees to companies that are looking in the future and that are trying to automate these dull, dirty, dangerous, and monotonous tasks. And letting that person do a little bit more of a rewarding job versus picking up boxes and stacking boxes all day long or whatever it may be. So now that we've discussed the why, let's get into the what. What is this product? So Universal Robots started out in an ideation stage between 2001 and 2005 by 3 professors out of Denmark. And they realized the need for a robot to fill the gap that we're all now seeing in manufacturing. And in 2008, the first cobot was developed, the UR5. And while the need for a larger payload and reach was still out there, fast forward a few years to 2012, and the UR10 was released. In 2013, we rang the bell at the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. And then in 2014, we were certified by TV Nord for the safety systems. So the UR3 is one of our tabletop robots, and that was launched in 2015. You had the 5 and the 10, which are a little bit larger. The 3 is more meant for like tabletop assembly and things like that. We don't, in our area here in Missouri and Southern Illinois, we sell definitely a majority of the 5s and the 10s. The 3s have more of a niche space in the market. And in 2015, Universal Robots, the Denmark-based company, was acquired by Teradyne for $285 million, and that Teradyne is based out of Boston. So 2017, launch of the Universal Robots Academy, which that is their online training courses. 2018 was when the E series was launched. Prior to 2018, it was the CB series. This is a CB2, CB3, and then the launch of the E series at Automatica was in 2018. And then 2019, the UR16 was put out. So that's their 35-pound payload robot. And then in 2020, the kind of first of its kind, first autonomous bin picking kit for machine tinting applications was put out. So 3D bin picking for any part products that you guys have in bins that eliminates the difficult challenge of feeding parts and presenting parts if the robot can just pick out of a bin of parts. So when we look at universal robots today, the growth, and especially the staff growth, is very significant. We're in 20 countries, 29 offices, and 740 plus employees and growing. Still around that 50% market share place with around 65 patents. So currently, I believe we're at like 54,000 robots installed worldwide. It's been growing and growing tremendously this year. This year has been, due to the pandemic, it's been a record year for universal robots. And this is kind of just showing distribution. Just in the dark blue is all the distribution for universal robots, so all their channel distributors, like FPE Automation, for example. And then showing the universal robot headquarters here and their subdivisions, or sorry, the headquarters here in Denmark and the subdivisions around the world. So the new E-Series family. So this, we say, is new. It's developed, still put out in 2018. So you see the UR3 all the way to the UR16 payload. So UR3 is mainly for the tabletop applications, like I mentioned, assembly, screw driving, things like that. The 5 is pretty good for machine tinning applications, welding, some palletizing, not much. The 16 is more for the heavy duty machine tinning applications. And the 10E is great for palletizing, great for machine tinning. This is one of our most popular selling robots. Not necessarily for the payload, for the reach is generally what customers need, is they need that 51-inch reach that the 10 kilogram has. So E-Series at a glance, kind of showing the platform here. So the robot arm is available in 3 kilogram, 5 kilogram, and now the updated 12.5 kilogram is what the 10E can do. So around 27.5 pounds, and then, or you can get the 16 kilogram. No matter what robot you get, it's the same controller and pendant. So I kind of mentioned Universal Robots Academy, or sorry, Universal Robots Ecosystem and Universal Robots Plus a little earlier. And what that is it's a platform with a number of different manufacturers on there. And some of them you can see here, Cognex, Schonk, ATI, and a number of different other ones. I think there's probably 500 plus now that are working to get into the UR Plus certified products market. What this is, it's similar to how like your iPhone or your Android has Google Play or the App Store. So they make the phones and they do a good job at it. And Universal Robots makes a robot. They understand that that's what they need to focus on, but they certify, they vet and certify companies like Robotique, like OnRobot, and like Ewellix, and a number of others to develop the hardware and the software to be plug and play for the end user. So once you purchase, say you purchase a lift kit for palletizing, once you purchase that, it'll come with the hardware, but it'll also come with a flash drive that you plug into the pendant, and makes it very plug and play. You can see the Ewellix software on there, and you can tell the lift kit to go to whatever distance, whatever millimeter increments you want, strictly through the pendant. You don't have to operate with any outside, say, any kind of PLC or anything like that. It's not needed with this plug and play type of system. There's also welding too, which is a very popular one. Vectus makes an off-the-shelf welder. Very simple to program, awesome for your high mix, low volume parts. Sanding, screw driving, I mean, there's a number of different applications. Really anything that your application is, all quality control. There's not many applications out there that there's not some sort of UR Plus product or application kit developed for it. So if you guys have any further questions on this, please ask, or feel free to contact me after the call. So what about return on investment? So any product that you purchase for your facility, this is what you have to look at. This is what everybody's really interested in. How quickly can I get my money back for this investment? So this kind of just lists an average payback time in months by application. All of them are under that 14-month mark, but you can see some of them are pretty low, like quality inspection is around 4 months. Machine tending is between that 8 and 9 month mark. So anything under 14 months is pretty great for any kind of ROI. And they base this 14-month ROI is also based on a 3-shift, but I'll kind of show an example here real quick. So if you look at your labor costs, your fully burdened rate may be around $18 an hour. And I think that's probably a pretty decent average for most of our customers, maybe a little low. And then hours per shift, 8 hours. Shifts per day, 3. Some of you probably don't run 3 shifts a day, but you can just kind of see how this works. So yearly running costs around $108,000. Monthly running costs is around $9,000. And this is assuming that you're going to replace or repurpose 1 employee off of this application. So your break-even point with 3-shift process is around 5 months. 1-year savings, you're saving $63,000. 5-year savings is insane at around $500,000. Now, say you had 1 shift, of course you're going to be probably around that 15-month mark. But even at that 15-month mark, you're still making money after that 15 months. You're not having to pay for this robot month after month like you would an employee, and you may be getting a better output. You may be getting lower scrap rate. You may be reducing your workman's comp issues. There's a number of different things that aren't listed on this ROI that a lot of our customers do take into account. So getting started. So if this is the direction you all decide to go, I've mentioned the Universal Robots Academy. This is an amazing training platform that's free to use online. It's 87 minutes. There's a number of different modules. The one that will kind of encompass everything and teach you how to use the pennant and teach you how to teach some simple points and get it to interact with sensors and conveyors is the 87-minute online academy. And that's something that you'd have to do before any additional training. So we also, at our facility, we also offer additional core training, which is a 2-day core class that will be certified by Universal Robots. It's offered in St. Louis at our facility. There's also an additional advanced training that you can get. The prerequisites would be the core training for that, and that's also 2 days. If you do that, it teaches you scripting and a number of other things that, for the more complex applications, that'll definitely help you with. Just kind of going over a little bit more of the e-learning modules and what they are and how they can help you. Number of different languages, number of different modules. I really recommend getting on their website. It's very beneficial. And if there's any additional questions, you can always ask us. So as you can see by some of the information I've shared, collaborative robots, when used in the correct setting, can be a very, very disruptive tool for manufacturers in any industry. If you want to know how this tool can be utilized in your facility and to make your employees and company more productive, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always open to take calls. I've got my contact information here. I really appreciate you guys joining the call today. I hope it was beneficial. I hope you've learned something from it. We're going to stay on for an additional 15, 20 minutes, depending on how long, if there's a lot of questions. But feel free to ask. And again, feel free to contact us. We can come out to your facility. We can take a look. If collaborative robots aren't the right fit for your facility, there's also industrial robots that we have to offer. There's a number of different automation tools. We're a full automation house. So use Missouri Enterprises, use FPE Automation as resources, and let us help you guys, because we know it's difficult out there trying to find people, and we want to see you guys succeed as well. So thanks again, and we'll open it for questions.
Great. Thanks, Kurt. I appreciate the presentation. The only thing I want to add to this is that one of the classes that I sometimes teach is on millennials and youth in manufacturing, which there's not a lot of millennials, or the younger folks are not looking at manufacturing the way it was looked at with baby boomers and Generation X type people. But the fact that introducing technology into manufacturing, all of a sudden it raises the interest in the youth that's in high school or in college today. They're looking at the technology and they're saying, hey, this could be something, this is very interesting to me now. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I don't know, can we open are they doing it online, or how are we doing the questions today?
Yeah, people want to come off mute.
Yeah, unmute yourself, and if you have any questions.
Also, there's a survey link that's going to be sent in the chat. We'd really appreciate it.
Yes, if you could do the survey, we really do appreciate it. It lets us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what we need to improve, and what other things you would like us to cover. So, any questions? Well, while we're waiting for questions, let me, can you switch to this? Yeah, so there's my contact information. And because you listened to this presentation and you put up with my, my smiling face, we're going to offer a free digital assessment to your company. So we can come in and look at your use of digital information, how ready you are for Industry 4.0. Just do an assessment of where you stand, what areas you can improve upon, what areas you're strong in, and where the holes are in your plan. At the same time, I've talked with Kurt, and we have agreed that we can do Cobot needs reviews. So if you have an area where you say, I don't know, maybe we could put a Cobot in this, I don't know if it would work, or I don't think we could get Cobots anywhere in our plant, we probably beg to differ. So what you need to do is go on to MissouriEnterprise.org, one word, MissouriEnterprise.org, and then look under contacts. You can find your area business manager. I think we got it set up. You just type in your zip code and it will tell you who your area business manager is, and just reach out to them. They will come and set up the meetings, or you can reach out to me. There's my email at the bottom, B. Beckman, 2 B's at the beginning, 2 N's at the end, at MissouriEnterprise.org. And I can come in and talk with you, and we can set something up. We do have a Basics of E-Commerce webinar coming up on October 20th, if you want to sign up for that. Any questions? Silent group here. Everybody's asleep or going to lunch already. Well, I want to thank you all for attending. I hope it was informational, and we look forward to working with you, and please contact Missouri Enterprise for any of your manufacturing needs. So appreciate it, and thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.